If you enjoy unusual stories, you've come to the right place.
There is a parent at a school where I work whose child falsely accused a teacher of physical abuse. The child admitted the injuries were fake. The mother pursued a lawsuit against the teacher, making the teacher's life difficult. A few months later, the child went to the grocery store with her grandfather, came home and discovered her mother's murdered body. Her ex-con father was at the house and had killed the mother. The child had been a bully. When she returned after the murder, most people were supportive. Some former victims noticed vulnerabilities they might exploit. The school year ended soon after she returned and she went on to middle school. Nothing further is known about her. When the narrator first began freshman year in high school, they were bullied mercilessly by a junior who was bigger and stronger. The bully pushed the narrator, called them names, and mocked anyone who spoke to the narrator. Adults who were informed did not meaningfully intervene. The situation became so severe that the narrator considered leaving school. One day, the principal announced that the bully had been in a car accident and had died. The bully did not deserve to die. After the bully's death, the narrator began making friends, was able to walk through the halls without fear, and flourished academically. The narrator went on to college and built a career. A coworker was mean, petty, rude, unhelpful, and behaved like an adolescent despite being an adult. The coworker was later diagnosed with advanced breast cancer and began missing increasing amounts of work, eventually becoming unable to continue working and needing to spend time with family. An ex-wife left her husband for a man who struggled with addiction. They had 2 children. The man later died of an overdose. The family struggled, and the situation unfolded publicly on social media. A girl at school who had been especially cruel to classmates was later revealed to have been horribly abused by both parents. The abuse escalated after she reached puberty and included severe physical punishment. The abuse was discovered after a medical emergency when her appendix ruptured and emergency personnel observed signs of abuse. Both parents were arrested and jailed following the discovery. A kindergarten teacher had been abusive toward children, tying kids to chairs and gagging talkative children. Years later, she was involved in a car accident while driving with 2 grandchildren, caused by a drunk driver. The teacher survived physically after a coma, but the 2 grandchildren died. The teacher fell into deep depression and was later institutionalized. Complaints about her behavior previously led to her being transferred to another school rather than being criminally charged. A student who had been a celebrated quarterback suffered a severe leg injury at the end of his senior year that caused his scholarships to be withdrawn and derailed his expected athletic path. He later divorced and began posting incoherent and disturbing content online, showing signs of severe mental struggle. A friend from high school developed drug-induced psychosis after leaving the military, became unemployed, drank heavily, experienced paranoid delusions, and was admitted to a psychiatric facility for evaluation and treatment. An ex-wife moved in with a family friend during prolonged divorce proceedings. Negotiations over alimony continued for many months. Shortly after a settlement agreement was signed, the family friend suddenly died of a stroke. Accusations and suspicions arose, but there is no definitive public conclusion recorded here. A girl in secondary school who bullied outcast children had a troubled family history with multiple stillbirths or miscarriages among siblings, abandonment by her father at a young age, and the death of a stepfather from cancer. She exhibited cruel behavior toward peers, but herself had experienced significant trauma earlier in life. A former coworker who mistreated others became pregnant and tragically lost the baby days before the expected due date due to a blood clot in the umbilical cord. She had to endure the trauma of childbirth without the child. A homeless man who had been rude during emergency responses was struck by a truck and dragged many blocks, was intubated on scene and transported to hospital, but later died from his injuries. A person who had been perceived as an antagonist and a bully in high school was later revealed to have been abused at home, including by a parent charged with serious crimes. This revelation changed how others viewed his earlier behavior. A woman named Paula moved away and later suffered an all-terrain vehicle accident that left her paralyzed from the neck down. She required years of physical therapy and rehabilitation. Her parents did not visit her in the hospital. An ex-partner engaged in manipulation and verbal abuse, worsening their partner's depression and self-esteem. The relationship ended, and it took years for the former partner to rebuild self-respect and stability. An 8th-grade math teacher who had been disliked by many students later died of breast cancer and never married. A girl who had bullied another child from early school years experienced the death of an older brother in an accident. She was absent from school for a short period and then returned to previous behavior. A person who had been mercilessly bullied in high school developed severe depression and anxiety. Years after graduation, they learned that their bully had a parent with terminal cancer, a revelation that did not erase the harm caused. A dating relationship ended when one partner cheated. The person who was cheated on experienced prolonged mistrust and social fallout in their friend circle. Later, the person who had been the other partner was also cheated on, and the situation unraveled. A man who had burned an apartment in anger years later died in custody after being sprayed repeatedly with pepper spray by a prison guard. His death raised questions about use of force and contributed to various reactions among those who knew him. Two students in gym class went to retrieve a ball from bushes, disturbed a hornet's nest, and were stung extensively, one in the groin area. A high school girl who had been harsh to classmates underwent a tonsillectomy. Afterward, an incision opened at home, leading to catastrophic bleeding and death. A Spanish teacher lost her husband to drowning. Students once mocked the teacher in class during that period, worsening the teacher's grief. A teacher who had emigrated from a region affected by wartime bombings experienced PTSD. When students simulated an air raid, the teacher was triggered, collapsed, and reacted in distress. An ex-wife gave birth to a child with a fatal cranial formation condition. The infant survived only a short time after birth and died in the mother's arms. A student placed in a class for additional support due to autism spectrum traits and behavioral challenges was assigned older boys to sit with them on the bus and a special teacher during class. One older student restrained the child physically, yelled, and swore. The student received detentions, but the pattern continued. Years later, the former aggressor, now named Jake, returned in a disheveled state seeking guidance. Community members and the former peer offered support, and over time, the former aggressor secured steady employment and improved his life. The former victim experienced mixed feelings of compassion and lingering hurt. A person who had felt deep hatred toward another encountered that person many years later in severe decline and homelessness, prompting contemplation about mercy and response. Community members assisted where possible. A teacher who had once been harsh and unsympathetic with students was moved between schools due to complaints, but was not prosecuted at the time. Later changes in legal and institutional responses meant similar behavior would be handled differently. An individual who had been cruel and dismissive toward others later experienced a series of personal misfortunes, including relationship breakdowns and mental health crises, revealing that outward behavior sometimes concealed private suffering. Many individuals who caused pain to others later faced serious illness, accidents, or personal tragedies. Those events produced complicated reactions among former victims, ranging from relief to guilt and ongoing emotional conflict.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see more stories.